of the City of Clarkston. I am Beverly Burks, Mayor, and I will at this time have a roll call. Councilman Carroll. I don't see Councilman Carroll. Let's see. Vice Mayor Yasu. Councilman Carroll.
Present.
Councilwoman Johnson.
I'm here.
Councilman Hassan. Councilman Hassan. Councilwoman Hopkins. Whoever is not a city council member to mute their phones, or Mr. Gomez, would you please mute the phone line for me? Councilman Perkins.
Here.
Let me go back. Councilwoman Hopkins, are you here? Vice Mayor Yasu. So we have quorum. So now we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move into item C, which is section C, administrative business presentation. C1. Mr. Gomez, can you make sure, unless someone is a council member or speaking, that all phones are muted? Thank you. We're moving into item C1, which is to approve minutes. And we have the minutes for council meeting April 6, 2021 and work session April 27, 2021. You've had an opportunity to review the minutes. At this time, I will entertain a motion. Vice Mayor Yasu.
I move that we approve the minutes for it's April 6th City Council meeting.
I second.
Oh,
What about the work session? Are you going to approve the work session minutes too?
have we going to start doing that now?
Yes.
And also the April 30th work session.
April 27. Perfect.
It's 27, and April 27 work session.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we approve the minutes from the April council meeting and the work session on April 27. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passed. We will now move into reports in section D. We'll start off with our planning and zoning report from Ms. Cowie.
Hello, Madam Mayor. Hello,
Yes.
Madam Mayor. Thank
Hello,
you.
how are you? Thank you.
The 2021 comprehensive plan is underway. The comprehensive plan is underway and making progress. Our engaged volunteers on the steering committee meetings have conducted 2 meetings thus far, March the 24th and April the 28th. Discussions include open space, natural resources, community engagement, historic preservation, land use, our best assets, diversity in housing, density, and being bikeable and walkable. Can you hear me?
Yes.
The challenges that they've discussed thus far are affordable housing. The downtown is just not thriving as much as we would like for it to be right now, and the lack of essential businesses. But they are discussing proposing population policies, economic development policies, housing policies, and more affordable housing initiatives. The comprehensive plan update website is being finalized by the Atlanta Regional Commission and should be ready for the public by Friday. This site will allow the community to provide feedback and complete the online survey that has been translated into 6 languages: Arabic, Burmese, French, Swahili, and Nepali. That link will again be made available on the city website. There will be a virtual community meeting to jointly discuss the comprehensive plan update and zoning rewrite on May the 19th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. That link should have gone out today for all who would like to participate. The participant information will be available again on the website and in our department. If you have any additional questions or concerns, these 2 documents are very important because they do support each other. And the team will be discussing the process, and we encourage the community to continue to participate towards providing feedback in the final adoption of both documents. So as mayor and city council has not provided their, had not had an opportunity to discuss their input about the zoning rewrite with our consultant team, there still is an opportunity on May the 6th from 9 a.m. to 5, and Friday, May the 7th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. But on those days, we only need 45 minutes of your time. Historic preservation is alive and well. They are conducting their research with the city of Clarkston does have 1,463 parcels. And a part of that nomination report, they have to go through those parcels and identify the significance of each parcel in the history, the architect, and design of each parcel. So they will continue to do their research as noted in my report and continue their windshield surveys, which are just riding by each address and taking pictures of the aesthetics of each building and providing a description. Currently, the team is on step 6 out of 11 steps. They need to submit the nomination report to mayor and city council to designate an area that will be historic. So, thank you, Madam Mayor. That ends the planning and zoning report.
Ms. Cowie, are there any questions or comments for Ms. Cowie at this time from the council? Okay, hearing none, we will move to the city manager's report. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. This is Robin Gomez, the Clarkston City Manager. I'm going to go over our year-to-date budget to actual financial information that is on the screen for the first 1/3 of our fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs January to December. This data is through April the 30th. We are below budget on our expenditures. You can see nearly all the departments. Police and Public Works are a little bit above due to the additional hazard pay that once we receive our federal, our ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funding, then we will reimburse the general fund and for those the additional hazard pay that has been paid out. But again, all our expenditures really no significant, that's really the only difference between this year and last year, and no other significant changes. We do have 1 vacancy in the police department that hopefully will be filled in the next 2 weeks. And then we still have an open budgeted position in our Public Works, some part-time positions that will be filled over the next month or so. And then we will amend the budget also to add a position in planning and development. In terms of the revenue, and I'll go into a little bit more detail that again, we received the majority of our revenue at the end of the year. You can see where we are so far. We are ahead of last year. I am going to skip to the revenue detail just to go over a few categories. But we are ahead of where we were at this time last year. We were in about approaching the second full month of being closed, but we've received just under $786,000 in revenue this year. At this time last year, we were just over 600,000 at 604,113.06. Just to go back up, there's a little tick mark in the 1, 2, 3 in the fourth column from left to right, right next to the 2021 YTD actual or year-to-date actual. And the tick marks are just some of the revenues that we've received more this year than the prior year. Again, through the first 4 months of the year, you can see such as our public utility tax for the prior year, our motor vehicle intangible tax, the real estate transfer tax, significantly higher than last year and significantly above our proposed budget for the current year, indicating that there have been significant real estate transactions. There is a tax that, again, we receive a portion of it. And just continuing down, you can see some, again, increases in local option mixed drink tax and our business and occupational tax, since we are collecting and we have been communicating with all the businesses to make sure that they do pay their business tax. Work permit ID card entertainments, where we've received 45,000 or 46% of our, nearly 46,000, 46% of our budget. At this time last year, we had stopped processing those work permits and ID cards. So we, as I mentioned, we began offering those by appointment. We started that back in, I think, the middle of January, and appreciate the court staff in scheduling that and encouraging. We've encouraged all the employees to come in and obtain their permits. Also, building permits are up over this time last year, and we've had just the increase in the development has obviously led to an increase in the building permit revenue and overall activity. And certainly the 6 commercial developments, the 5 housing plus the nearly completed CIBC or Send Relief and Southern Baptist Convention project, plus the other 5 housing projects, have led to a significant increase in building permit revenue and building activity. And on to the next page, we are even ahead of last year a little bit in our municipal court fines and forfeitures, although we're still below the budget for the year, but we're expecting that we will come below that $525,000 budget. And then also rents and royalties and the unfortunately reimbursements for damaged property. It's good that we are being reimbursed, but not so good that we are experiencing a lot of damaged property. So overall, we're faring well. We will have in a few weeks the first iteration from DeKalb County, the tax commissioner, of what the projected tax digest will be, whether there will be an increase, no increase, et cetera, in valuations. We will review that. We will share that obviously with council. We will have that as an agenda. That information and data as part of the agenda item for the June 22nd work session, where we look to adopt a millage rate for the current year. So we will have that. And of course, that determines what our property tax revenue will be. One other revenue I just wanted to cover quickly is our SPLOST. We have continued to do very well in our receipts. We received this past month $175,004.67 in the additional 1% special purpose local option sales tax, which is the 3rd highest month we have received after the December of 19 and December of 20. And on the screen, you can see the monthly totals by fiscal year and then the total for the fiscal years. Of course, last year, fiscal 2020, we had a slight decline due to the closures related to the pandemic, but we have rebounded quite well. Just looking at June of 2019 compared to June 2020, we were considerably higher. And so far, the first 3 months of fiscal 21, we are ahead of the budget. We are exactly 36 months through this tax that was approved by DeKalb County voters for 6 years or 72 months. And so halfway through, including the 2 months that we received unusually low, again, due to the closure as a result of the pandemic, we are at just over 5.425 million. If we were to simply double that or over the life of the current tax, we would be at 10,850,000. But again, this tax is an indicator that consumer spending continues to do well, and it continues to do well county-wide, not just us, but again, for mainly those goods that are subject to sales tax. So again, consumer spending seems to be doing well in that aspect. And again, sales tax collections reflect that. And as I stated, all the other revenues expenditures were in line with where the budget, and we will be bringing next month hopefully the year-end fiscal 2020 amounts so that we close out. We're working on the year-end audit, but we will have that more information at the next month's work session. Wanted to update on our construction. We are, for the streetscape project, which includes Norman, Roland from Norman to Market, and then East Ponce and Market Streets. As I mentioned before, that is essentially complete. Now the contractor is going back and making corrections, adjustments to areas that need to be corrected, such as brickwork, sidewalk corrections, other areas, well, related to the sidewalk, some of the apron driveways into some of the businesses, reviewing the landscaping. All of that must be essentially to our satisfaction before we finalize the project and certainly make the final payment to the contractor. So they have received a list of multiple items. They officially have 30 days or formally from today to finish all of the work that we've provided that needs to be essentially corrected in order for that to be completed. In the last month, our other contractor, Soul Construction, began the project on the Mel Avenue Trailhead, Roland Hill Rogers project. They started at the trailhead in expanding that pocket park over next to the U-Haul near Mel Avenue, and at the same time began on Roland Street between Market and North Indian Creek. And of course, that project will continue for at least the next year. So they're continuing with that. And we are hopeful that we will have a final response from CSX to complete the work on East Ponce down right before and right after Brockett Road to add the sidewalk that is on the CSX right-of-way side of East Ponce. This has taken significantly longer from CSX to get approval. They had requested some intriguing additional stormwater work that we've negotiated with them and complied with what their requests are. So we're hopeful that that will reconvene over the next 2 to 3 months. So that's the update on construction. Also, hopefully many of you noticed we added 4 or replaced, well, I think a couple were new ones, bus shelters on East Ponce, and part of the wall backing of the shelter and the sides came in, and they're if anybody has seen them, they're quite colorful. They spell out freedom and then welcome in multiple languages. There are 2 other panels that each shelter will receive. Hopefully they will be installed over the next week as well. But we've had a lot of very positive comments from residents and visitors, seeing how interesting and unique those new shelters are. So we're getting, again, closer and closer. And as I've said many times at these meetings, we certainly do appreciate everyone's patience and understanding for all of that work. And I think, as all of you are aware, because it's still, I believe, raining now, the rain event from yesterday, we obviously looked at all the areas that need drainage improvements. Of course, when it rains that hard, there's very little that can prevent quite a bit of that water from ponding, from clogging streets. That's why the alerts were issued and advising folks to stay home. But we did have quite fortunately, we were not made aware of any vehicles that stalled or anything else. We had one vehicle that did have an incident today earlier on East Ponce, but not related to apparently any water or ponding of water or anything like that. So we'll continue to look at that, obviously make sure that all the drains are clear, where we can make adjustments. We have several places that we were aware of that we will be making adjustments through our stormwater fund. There's several places where the drainage and the water is being conveyed onto other properties, other neighbors, and that should not be happening. So we will be making those corrections. We'll have some more details as those begin over the next few weeks. And wanted to mention, we will look to reopen City Hall Annex, not City Hall, but City Hall Annex to the public starting on Tuesday, May the 11th. It'll be for 4 hours from 10 to 2. So we will have City Hall Annex open Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 2 for the rest of the month of May. And then hopefully by June, we will reopen City Hall as well as City Hall Annex for probably 3 days and longer hours. But that's where we are now. The rest of our parks are open. The tennis courts will open as soon as at Milam Park will open as soon as we have a vendor clean the courts. But the rest of the parks are open, and we will look to, well, we're not renting out the pavilions currently. They are being used, but of course we're encouraging folks to wear masks and distance. So we will continue just to monitor and see how that proceeds. And hopefully many of you, if you haven't already, we do encourage folks to sign up for the city's newsletter. You can go online to the city's internet site and just sign up right on the homepage, and you can receive lots of information on events, activities, meetings, etc. So as we start to have them again moving forward. And lastly, do encourage folks to, if you haven't already, we are strongly encouraging folks to get vaccinated. The more people get vaccinated, the more we can then, a lot of the restrictions that are being eased will be eased throughout certainly our area, our city. So we do encourage people to get vaccinated. Be happy to answer any questions.
Robin, this is Councilman Carroll. So my question was, the Milam Park field has been closed for a while, I think for several weeks. It seems like to me the grass has mostly been grown. Do we have a schedule for reopening the Milam Park?
June. Yeah, June. We're going to give it a few more weeks to allow the grass to grow, particularly there's a couple of patches that really need to grow. And so we're giving it just a few more weeks.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Gomez. We will have our city attorney, Mr. Quinn.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. I do not have any report tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quinn. We'll now move into council remarks and reports. I will start with Councilman Carroll.
No report this week.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Yasu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I just want to report on April 8th, I had a meeting with the zoning rewrite team, and it was great that I gave them my input on it. And April 22nd, I attended what is it? Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just going to say on the early learning committee. I attended on April 22nd, they had a meeting. And also, I just want to wish to all our Muslim residents happy Ramadan. And also, I hope that all our Christian residents had great Easter. That's all I want to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would like to first start off by thanking Ms. Cowie for her service and dedication. I received, I was CC'd on an email today about, from Mr. Pulling, I think. And he kind of gave her a lot of accolades. And I just wanted to let her know that her service was appreciated. And we appreciate her showing our citizens that we want them to do whatever they want to do. And I did have the pleasure on May the 13th, I attended the Culture Fest call. They have an event going on May 8th for Mother's Day. And we actually discussed our Juneteenth program with them. And then on May 1st, I was a attendee at the kickoff for Bike Month. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for that. And it was awesome. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Ms. Councilwoman Johnson. Councilman Hassan. Okay. Councilman Hassan. Moving right along, Councilwoman Hopkins.
Hello, I also met with the group, the Culture Fest group, and it was a good talk. It was an interesting talk. We do have a committee forming for our Clarkston Juneteenth celebration. Anybody who would like to be involved in that or to be involved with our Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunity Committee, you can fill out an application to join any of the standing advisory committees that are available on the city site, or you can email me and I will send you the link in the form and it's submitted through the city. You can also reach out to Councilwoman Johnson, who is on both the Juneteenth committee and the Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunity Committee. So I would also like to encourage everybody to get vaccinated if they haven't been already. They're about to open it up to children from 12 to 18 years old for vaccines. And right now, I don't think people realize that over 20% of the people in Georgia who have COVID are children. And although they're not as likely to get severely ill and be hospitalized or die, they do, and they have in Georgia, but they're also more likely to pass it on to parents and grandparents. So if you have the opportunity, please take the opportunity to get vaccinated. That's all.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hopkins, and Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is my audio working this time? I think everybody can. Yeah, so I just have a few things to report. I also had the opportunity to join in on the early learning task force call and just listen in to the work that they're doing. I'm excited to read the recommendations that they provide here pretty soon to the council. There's a lot of good input and really sharp folks on that task force. So I think the community is definitely better for having them on our side. I also got to attend Bike Week, so that was a lot of fun. We did not bike there, so we definitely blurred the lines a little bit. Showed up with our jogging stroller, so we did get some exercise in. But it was great to see a lot of families out and just even the potential for collaboration with other cities just around something that does unite us, just encouraging people to get out and exercise. So thank you, Madam Mayor, for initiating that and for everyone who worked hard on hosting that event. And then I would also like to just reiterate what Councilwoman Hopkins said regarding the vaccine. I know there's a lot of hesitancy in terms of vaccination in various communities around our nation. And so we've, I actually had the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So if anyone has any questions for me personally in terms of that experience or wants to be connected to, primary care physician who can answer questions, I'm more than happy to do that. It was, relatively painless as vaccines go. So I have no further updates.
Thank you, Councilman Perkins. And so we'll move into the mayor's report. And again, I want to make sure we also recognize this is Asian American and Pacific Islanders Month and recognize our community with that, along with its Teachers Week. So I don't know where would we be without our teachers. I had the pleasure of attending one of the comprehensive plan meetings. I attended the Culture Fest call with Councilwomen Hopkins and Johnson. For Pet Day on April 25th, we were able to provide 40 rabies shots and service 70 animals, both cats and dogs during that time. So we appreciate that collaboration with the Georgia Animal Alliance. I served as a panelist on a refugee panel for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sororities Conyers chapter. I attended the Mayor's Policy Committee meeting. I attended Commissioner Bradshaw's District 4 meeting with the mayors. I attended the COVID Task Force meeting that we have bi-monthly. I attended the grand opening of the Majid Al Monamin next to us, the mosque that is right outside of our city limits. And I also attended a dinner with the Musa organization, and I attended the early learning committee meeting and helped coordinate the Bike Month event. And so that concludes my report for reports for the mayor. We will now close and move into public comments. And this is section E. Any member of the public may address the council during the time allotted for public comments. Each attendee will be allowed 3 minutes for comments at the discretion of the presiding officer. The public comment period will be limited to 40 minutes, and it is not a time for dialogue. Your public comment contains a series of questions. Please submit those to the city clerk in writing. And this will facilitate follow-up by the council or staff. And the city council desires to allow an opportunity for public comment. However, the business of the city must proceed in an orderly, timely manner. And just before we do that, I also want to make sure we recognize that we have City Clerk Week. And so I wanted to acknowledge our Tracy Ashby for all that she does for us. So thank you, Ms. Ashby, for everything that you do for the city. Mr. Gomez, do we have anyone signed up for public comments?
Yes, we have Cameron Kilberg.
Cameron? Mr.
All
Kilburn?
right, I was trying to find the mute button. I just signed up to, once again, thank you guys for, listening and taking the time to discuss with GoPuff the concept of allowing us to get a retail license. And you guys were going to take a final vote on it. We've spoken to a lot of you guys offline. But again, just want to be here. If you have any questions or further concerns, I think since I've talked to most of you all, you guys are pretty much set on those questions. But again, just want to thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Gomez? Who else is signed up?
We have, I don't see them on the call, but PJ Jangra. Didn't see the name, but they did sign up. And
I'm on the call.
oh, okay, go ahead.
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. I was just we were trying to see how that would work really with like there was a couple things I was reading about the bill where as they I think as of 2016 the transfer of licenses has stopped in Clarkston as well. And so we were like, with the amendment to the bill, that would hurt small businesses in the area because that would bring a big player into where they have more resources to where they can do versus what we can do. And that's just pretty much what I wanted to add into it.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you for bringing that up. Mr. Gomez, who else signed up?
Talwan Singh.
Mr. Singh? Okay, I don't think I see them.
Okay. Brian Medford.
Mr. Medford?
Evening, everybody. I just wanted to say I attended the bike event on Saturday and it was excellent, very well done. I wanted to say congratulations and thank you to Mayor Burks as well as to the city workers who put everything on. And what I really liked about that event was working with our local cities. I'd love to see more collaborations like this with our neighboring cities. Clarkston does not exist in a vacuum. What happens around us greatly affects our city. So seeing those mayors up there, seeing those representatives all up there talking was great. I thought that was fantastic. I was able to take advantage of the mobile bike shop that was there and got my son's bike tuned up and my wife's bike tuned up. So that was a great thing as well. And all I could think of while I was standing there on Rowland Street was how wonderful it would be on that section at some point to maybe even do a art gallery weekend or some sort of city event through that closed thoroughfare where people could walk through and peruse artwork or goods or food. Be a great place to do like a pop-up food thing, would be right there in front of City Hall Annex. It was just a great event all the way around, and I applaud the city for doing it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medford. Mr. Gomez, did anyone else sign up?
Amy Medford.
Mrs. Medford.
Hi, I wanted to echo that, yes, Bike Month was really cool, well done. And it was great that there were a lot of cities involved. So I look forward to see what the other cities are going to be doing in the weekends ahead. I also wanted to say in support of the GoPuff thing, I think this is a great idea. It's a great business opportunity, something that didn't exist when our ordinance was originally written. The state just now passed it. I feel like as far as other businesses, these other businesses were given the opportunity to do this July last year. And so if they haven't taken advantage of it, they've had a whole year ahead of when GoPuff is applying. So it doesn't really threaten a business model because they weren't using the business model to begin with. This is a great opportunity for GoPuff and other businesses to expand. I also wanted to know about potentially easing or getting rid of the mask ordinance in the city, considering the CDC has now said that vaccinated adults can be in public small gatherings without wearing a mask. And it looks like, that's the way to go forward, that perhaps we should reconsider the mask ordinance we have in the city or somehow change it to reflect the science that the CDC has put forth so far.
Thank you, Mrs. Medford, sorry. Mr. Gomez, did anyone else sign up?
Tracy Bishop.
Mr. Bishop.
Hey there, how you doing, Mayor? Everybody else, it was a pleasure working with y'all last weekend. I want to say that thank you, Mr. Gomez, for kicking in and helping us get all those pets vaccinated and everybody taken care of at Milam Park. And I wish I'd have known I could have had a party in the pavilions without getting a permit, because I'd have just thrown one for myself. That looked like that was fun down the way from us. But I'm not here to talk about that tonight. What I'm here to talk about is G1 and 2. Well, I was looking at it, but it went away. That has to do with the annexation of a piece of property on Clevemark. It's a pretty big piece of property. And it cuts into the stream buffer above the lake, the upper lake on Norman Road. So I think some of y'all may remember there was this time in March of 2019, I was calling the former mayor a fraud because he was destroying the environment by the lake. Now, I was put in jail for that, and we can talk about that at a later date, and I'm sure we will. But what I'm here to talk about is the fact that you have a picture that you sent out. It's in the packet. There's a color picture, and you can see the deforestation that took place when they did that piping project in 2018. Now, you see how they clear cut back there. I think that is exactly what I was describing when I was so irate at the podium. So when I went to talk again, of course, I was going to talk from a city perspective because we had two different issues, but I don't want to litigate that. We'll go to court. What I want to talk about is this. Mayor Burks, remember I told you there was an environmental report done by an engineering firm in 2008. Now, this was commissioned, I believe, by the county, possibly with the city involved when Mike Shipman was the public works director. But it in no uncertain terms discusses the need for stormwater runoff mitigation when it comes to that stream. I don't know if any of y'all had familiarized yourselves with the fact that that entire lake out back is actually a big retention pond for the city. So we catch pretty much everything from this Milam Park, from the railroad tracks to Milam Park on the opposite side of the road, all the way up there. All that runoff comes down into the lake. And what it does is it causes a great deal of erosion, especially where you can see where it was clear cut and no mitigation measures were put in place. Now, I'm not trying to be, difficult, but I have a long history of negotiating this issue with the city because I was former president of the Lake Association. We had already demonstrated that the lake is the headwaters of the South River going into the Atlantic. And that was one of the environmental reasons we had requested the lake be dredged 10 years ago. Well, now the lake is being filled up with Georgia red clay and a lot of sediment. This is problematic because, well, basically it causes the problems we had 10 years ago. But in addition to that,
Mr. Bishop, you got 30 seconds, 30 more seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, I was looking forward to Tracy Ashby trying to silence me instead of you, Mayor Burks.
I know.
I mean, that's what she gets paid for, right? Silencing citizens who have a legitimate right to fire with the city. Yeah. So she's overpaid. But this report, which you should have, clearly demonstrates the problems with fooling around with that stream buffer, especially clear cutting it the way that the county did. And apparently left trees just laying there. Now, I am not one to ever tell anybody what to do with their property. But if you annex this property in, and I've told you about this, know that that stream buffer should really not be messed with because it's not only and it really doesn't work anymore because they clear cut everything. And it didn't work that well before because we need those rocks and stuff put in the pathway to slow down that water when it's coming down the way it does, because it comes down like a fire hose into the river, into the lake. Anyway, point being, if you're going to annex that property, there has to be some kind of they can't build on that. They cannot cut those trees down on either side of the lake. We have blue heron that live there. We have all kinds of wildlife that is consistently under attack by this city. East Avenue is a prime example. And look, Mr. Gomez, I am so happy that the city has all that extra money from building permits. That is just delightful.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Nobody else
Bishop.
signed up to speak, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we will now move into the old business, which is item F1, amend section 358, new licenses permitted for certain designated businesses to define and permit a retail delivery shop to sell and deliver packaged beer, malt beverages, and or wine as a qualified business in the city of Clarkston. Ms. Cowie. Ms. Cowie.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Madam Mayor?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Thank you. This purpose of this request is to create an option for retail businesses who do not allow walk-in sales to receive a license for retail sales as a retail delivery shop by the package of beer, malt beverages, and or wine. The Georgia Assembly adopted House Bill 879 last year, allowing for the home delivery of beer, wine, and liquor and alcohol. The business GoPuff in Clarkston is requesting the ordinance amendment to venture into the delivery of beer and wine as a retail delivery shop. Per 3-58 of the City Code of Ordinance, GoPuff is currently ineligible to receive and obtain a new alcohol license in the city of Clarkston. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Cowie. And I think we have a representative from GoPuff on the line. Did you have any other comments?
I do not at this point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And at this time, Council, did you have any comments that you want to express? Council, any comments? Are you ready for the vote? Okay. Yes, Miss Councilwoman Johnson.
Oh, no, I was just getting ready.
Okay, you ready for the vote? Okay. All right, I need a motion.
I move that we approve the GoPuff, the proposed ordinance change by GoPuff with the condition that there would be no in-person tasting events and that there would be an 18-month trial period beginning in August 1st of 2021, at which point the ordinance change would expire unless it's reviewed by the council.
It was some issue with the phone or your phone. So please restate your motion.
Okay, it's Councilman Carroll. I move that we approve the proposed ordinance change with the amendment that the establishments permitted by the change would not be allowed to have in-person alcohol tasting events, and that the ordinance change would expire upon 18 months from August 1st, 2021, absent further action from the council to renew it. Could you hear me that time?
Yeah, August 2020, 2022.
Well, it would be 18 months from August 1st, 2021. So I guess that would be in February 1st, 2023.
Good evening, Council. This is Stephen. So our alcohol licenses run on an annual basis. And so I would recommend any ordinance that you intend to expire at the end of a calendar year.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
I'm
So-
fine with making it to December 31st, 2022, then that would just cut about a month off of it.
Okay, so to December 2022. Okay, is there a
I
second?
have a question.
We have a motion on the floor.
I have
So-
a question on the motion.
Well, either you vote it up or you vote it down, and then we have discussion.
Okay.
So is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved in second that we approve the proposed changes, include no in-person events, and have the alcohol, that portion of the alcohol provision until December 2022. You ready for discussion? So at this time, there's discussion. We can talk about anything at this point while the motion's on the floor. Yes, Councilwoman Hopkins.
The proposed changes is not actually approving the alcohol license for GoPuff as such.
No, it is to.
We're just
approve-
talking about the potential of a delivery-only retail business to apply for and get an alcohol license.
Correct. It is not specific to a company. It is specific for us to change our policy to allow any type of company that fits the criteria outlined in this proposed ordinance change.
So I also have a question then, I guess, for Stephen Quinn, because I know there's a very popular company called Naked Wines where people get small crafted wine delivery that operates within Clarkston. Is that currently not legal? I mean, they deliver to Clarkston. I can say that for a fact. Is that currently not legal?
So it's legal for our many currently licensed retail alcohol sales businesses to deliver. And it's legal for them to associate by contract with any third party that they might select to do the delivery. So I'm not aware of the specific operation that you named, but if they are working in association with a Clarkston licensed store that sells wine, and that's what that very wine is what they're delivering, then that's legal. If they're getting the wine from somewhere other than a Clarkston licensed retailer, then it's not legal.
Sorry, this is Cameron Kilberg. I don't want to jump in here rudely either, but if it's being mailed to you, that's direct shipment, which is different than the state law that was passed for delivery. That was prior. There was wine laws passed prior, but that's a different, I'm not sure which company that is, but that's a different state law.
It is being mailed.
Right. I didn't hear the
from
mail
state.
part. Yeah,
Okay.
that's totally different.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah, that's different. And thank you for the question. Miss,
Well, can I add one more thing,
sure,
Madam Mayor?
sure.
You know, one of the conditions that was part of the motion, so we shouldn't call these conditions because it's not like an application for zoning or a license that we're conditioning. It's really an extra term in the ordinance. And so one of them was that these places wouldn't hold any events at their location, but we already have in there that it's not open to the public. So I think we're covered on that one. And then what we would be doing pursuant to the motion would be to add to proposed section E another sentence that says this section expires on December 31st, 2022.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Quinn. And Ms. Kilberg, could you answer a question for me? I know that you have not only us, location here. Are you selling alcohol in Atlanta?
Yes, we're about to. Our license should just be, we just went through the licensing process at two of our locations in Atlanta. So I'd have to admit, I don't know if the alcohol's arrived at the store yet, but we do have licenses there.
Okay. And I think, Ms. Kelly, you did some additional information. Did you have any additional information you wanted to give to the council?
Yes, Madam Mayor, can you hear me? Yes, I reached out to the surrounding jurisdictions that abut the city of Clarkston, and I did not get a reply from Stone Mountain, but I did have a conversation with Avondale Estates. They did say currently they do not have an ordinance that either prohibits or allows the delivery of alcohol in their municipality. However, they did have a concern because they are updating. They did have a concern about monitoring. You know, how would that look? Especially if there are alcohol apps out there that are online that can deliver alcohol to you within 60 minutes if you put your address in there. So they had a concern about monitoring. The city of Tucker does not have an ordinance to allow delivery. And DeKalb County is aware of the legislation. However, they do not have an ordinance as of today that would allow the delivery in, as we would say, unincorporated DeKalb County. Because the city of Clarkston is the size that we are, there are properties and parcels that are in unincorporated DeKalb County that have a Clarkston address. So if monitoring is an issue, I'm not saying that it is an issue, it may be that we are unaware of those parcels that will receive or place orders for alcohol that are in unincorporated DeKalb County and not in the full city limits of Clarkston.
Or in other cities for that matter, we wouldn't know.
We wouldn't know. It would be a monitoring issue if we are taking it upon ourselves to know whether or not it is we would like to monitor, and how would that look?
All right, thank you, Ms. Cowie. Any other comments or questions from the council? Yes, Councilwoman Hopkins.
I do have a question as to how it is monitored now so far as if liquor stores are checking IDs of customers, who is the responsible body for that?
The liquor stores themselves are responsible to check ID, making sure that everybody is 21 and older. We do have at least once a year a process, and maybe the chief or the assistant chief can provide some additional details. We do partner, I believe it's with CPACs, if I recall, to do checks. So we will send undercover folks to go in and try to buy beer, wine, I think even liquor. And we have caught some that did not check for ID. They were subsequently, I believe they were fined. I don't know, chief or assistant chief, if you're on the line.
Yes, Mr. Gomez. Sergeant Bolter usually heads that up, and we do that with CPACs, and they bring in an underage juvenile to go around to all the locations, and we do issue citations. I can go back and get a list of the most recent one we did. I know we had put it in our weekly report, but we do that once a year.
And then this is Councilman Carroll. I have maybe a question for Ms. Kilberg. If she could talk about what steps GoPuff takes to make sure that they only deliver within the Clarkston city limits to this location, to make sure they're not delivering unincorporated cab or some other place that may not allow this service.
We have used address and geofencing. So same issue if we're in other localities, whether in Georgia or elsewhere. So we can basically draw lines through our technology. It puts in those addresses in that area, and it limits product that you can see or not see in the app. And so that would limit what you could purchase.
Vice Mayor Yasser.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is a concern that I raised at the work session as well. And there are a lot of, the city limits is really very difficult to define in certain cases. And I myself, I've campaigned twice, and a lot of times I do get confused, even though I've done this many times, and also campaign for candidates, for my colleagues. So I am not exactly sure how this is going to work. I really don't know if they get this map from the Georgia Voter Registration Office. That's probably the only way that you can really tell the city limits. Other than that, I'm not exactly sure what technology they're going to be using to make sure. And on top of that, I really don't see how can our PD monitor this, or how can, I really am not sure how this can be monitored. And, but my other biggest concern is, so with this proposal, the city council is basically moving away from the moratorium or amending this moratorium. So from now on, this is not just about GoPuff, but in the future, I'm pretty sure there will be more people coming and applying for the same thing, and we will have no justification or no excuse to deny them. I really have a concern on that. So just like we heard from one of the business owners earlier, we either going to have to open up the whole thing for everybody, or we're going to have to postpone this for a month or so and make sure that we do our due diligence, and actually we either have to end the moratorium, or this is not really the way I see it. I'm not against opening it up, but if we have to open it up, we have to open it up for everybody. It just would not make sense to say we don't want brick and mortar, but we are okay with online delivery, which would have been fine if we did not have this moratorium. So thank you.
But Mayor and Council, just to reiterate, what you currently have before you is to expand the ordinance to add a fourth category, retail delivery shop, to Section 3-58 of the Clarkston City Code that would allow for a growler shop or a specialty wine shop or a grocery store, or the fourth one that is before you, the retail delivery shop, to be able to apply to obtain a license to sell beer, malt beverages, and or wine. Again, we currently do not have a moratorium. What the council did a few years ago was simply restrict the types of businesses that could apply for a license to sell packaged beer, wine, or malt beverages.
So that is just the restriction for that piece. And so all we're doing with this is
you would be adding a fourth category, a fourth business type.
Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu, and then Councilwoman.
Yes, I understand, Mr. City Manager. I'm aware that we did not have a full-blown moratorium, but we definitely limited. There will be no more liquor stores, for example, as the way they exist. So we do have technically a moratorium on liquor stores. So this is just semantics, adding a new. So we are basically relaxing the existing limitation on the brick and mortar, except for growlers and specialty wine stores. I do know that, but my concern is that basically means that we will not have any more new liquor stores as they are defined in our ordinance. So that's what I'm saying. We either gotta have to allow any kind of alcohol selling places, or we should not be saying, oh, we only allow specific. So that's basically discriminating on what kind of stores we're gonna allow. So I just have a concern that we had limited it, and even though I was against it, and now we are allowing we are adding a new criteria. So my concern is this basically opens it up And in the future, if somebody doesn't want to have a liquor store, all they have to do is just go around and just apply for a delivery.
This is not for liquor stores, though, just to clarify again, this is just to sell prepackaged beer, wine, and malt beverages, not liquor. Liquor stores are under a different section in the city code.
Yes, Councilwoman Hopkins.
I've kind of gone round and round on this, but I'd like to say that first thing, I think the original, what we're calling a moratorium, which isn't, was intended to be discriminatory in the sense that it's like, we're all for craft beer and growlers and high-end wine. We're just don't want malt liquor for sale on every corner. So it's designed to sort of skew the retail to a higher end. That was the original purpose, I think. And I do think this type of business would meet that in that it's not cluttering up our very valuable retail space with yet another retail place selling cheap beer and malt liquor. It is in the back of an industrial park. But at the end of the day, although all of the businesses in Clarkston, in my understanding, that already had a liquor license were able to do delivery for the last year, to my knowledge, nobody is right now. And it's been my general observation that when people tend to run out of alcohol is when they have been drinking it. And so if you have friends over and you're entertaining and you realize you're down to your last 2 glasses of wine and you've got 10 people here, you've already had a few. Maybe the thing you don't want to do is hop in a car and go get some more, but that's exactly what's going to happen. But this gives an option to give people who have been drinking the option to not go get some more when it starts running low, but to go out and have someone else who is stone cold sober bring it to the house. So I think it would reduce the number of people who have had alcohol being behind the wheel of a car, because I have never seen anyone run out of alcohol when they weren't currently drinking it. So I just think it's a public safety issue. And it still does not, it meets the ends of this original restriction on liquor licenses in that it does not allow that type of very cluttered, cheap stores on all of our retail. If other stores that were doing delivery in the Clarkston area, I would like to know about it because I don't. However, we're also discriminating against our own businesses because now that I know it's legal, I'll admit to it, I have a subscription to Naked Wine and they deliver wine like once a month from vineyards in California. And so now I can get wine delivered to my house from California, but I can't do it from a business inside Clarkston, and that doesn't seem necessarily wise either. So for the public safety of keeping people who have been drinking off the roads and also to put a Clarkston business on the same footing as businesses in other states that are having it delivered, I would support it.
Councilwoman Johnson, did you have a question or comment?
I was just gonna ask Ms. Kilberg, did they have a license in any other DeKalb County city currently?
We're not in anywhere else in DeKalb except for Clarkston at this
So
point.
how did you, okay, I get it. So you're only servicing Clarkston right now?
So we're in Atlanta areas, we're in some
Okay.
edges of Atlanta that those micro fulfillment centers are probably servicing product into DeKalb, as is Clarkston, but we don't have another location in DeKalb County at this time.
Great. Thank
Clarkston
you.
is going to be your hub.
It would be, it's our hub in the DeKalb region, yes.
And Chief Hudson, can you kind of weigh in just to make sure we get your viewpoint as well?
Yes, ma'am. Like I said in the beginning of these discussions, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's actually a great idea. I think to echo off Councilwoman Hopkins, it keeps people at home if they can order and have it delivered to their house.
Perfect. And Ms. Calvi, as from a staff recommendation, what would the staff recommend in terms of this update?
As far as the amendment is concerned to the text, staff will be looking mostly on, again, how the services, again, will be monitored. Code compliance does go out to every business and do a compliance check every year with their business licenses. And of course, this will be a separate license other than their business license for them to be established, any business, I would say, to be established as a retail delivery shop, so that the services that they're engaged in, as far as food products or any kind of household goods or any other items that are for delivery by any business, will be able to obtain or apply for an alcohol license. So staff recommendation will be to understand if there is a monitoring issue, how will we monitor, again, the unincorporated areas that do have addresses as Clarkston. I think Ms. Kilborg tried to touch on that a little bit, but we do have parcels that are listed as Clarkston, but they are not in the city limits of Clarkston. And I think that their service area includes the surrounding jurisdictions of DeKalb County or Tucker or Avondale Estates and Stone Mountain. So our process would be, and also in speaking with, one of the abutting jurisdictions, there's no way, even they had a concern that there is no way of monitoring who delivers. We actually, as we were talking, we were on a call, and he actually used one of the alcohol delivery apps, and it was no verification process. He was just waiting in those 60 minutes to see where the alcohol would come from and be delivered to his home. So right now we will be looking at how would we make sure that every business, not just, based on the text amendment, will follow policy and procedure correctly when they apply and if they are approved for a license.
Mayor, this is Robin, just to add, I mean, we really don't have a recommendation specific to this item, as we typically do not for ordinances. Of course, given that there's two sides to every issue. However, this is an opportunity for a business expansion that seems reasonable and logical. Again, I'm not saying that it's something we should or should not do. But we do exist to promote and ensure that businesses succeed. This is a business that's looking to do that. The decision, as all of you are aware on council, is yours. We've provided a significant amount of information and data and to make it as clear as possible for you to make a decision. But if we are in the business of ensuring, allowing businesses to expand, then this is an opportunity for business expansion. But again, clearly there are those that support it. There are those that do not support it in general, overall. So, and that's why it's your decision. As Ms. Cowie stated, we have to ensure that all businesses comply with all of our city codes. In terms of what is called citusing, meaning GoPuff has to determine if this ordinance is adopted, that they only provide their product, the goods that they're selling can only be within our jurisdiction. I mean, we will certainly make sure that do whatever we can to do that. They and anyone else can go on to various, well, at least one, well, a couple, but one main county internet site to check on any address, and it tells you the jurisdiction that the address is on, regardless of zip code, regardless of city or place name, because we have addresses in Clarkston that are in our city limits that do not have Clarkston as the mailing address. And again, they have Scottdale as the mailing address because they're in that zip code. So by going to the county GIS, you can pull up the tax parcel maps and determine the jurisdiction that an address is in. I will say that internet site is probably 99+% accurate, because that's what the county uses to mail tax bills and assign the proper taxing authorities, therefore, and then subsequently to ensure that the revenue goes to that appropriate taxing authority. Essentially in the case of a city, one of the 12 cities in DeKalb County versus unincorporated DeKalb County. So we will do everything that we need to do to ensure that they comply with this ordinance. But again, the decision is back on the council. It's just an expansion of the definition of businesses that can sell beer, wine, or malt beverages, as I've stated several times.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. And do we have a process if they fail to adhere to our monitoring or anything? Do we have a policy in place now for that?
Well, it's in the code that we can go. There is a process, and I'd have to look at what the code says to either temporarily suspend or remove a license.
Yes.
Councilwoman
Mr. Gomez,
yes.
yes, that is the process that we will, after review, there is a review process of what the violation is. We will review them and then, of course, give them a citation, and they have a chance to defend themselves or appeal, and then we go through the process if we need to revoke a license. But also, we want to make sure that with this text amendment, again, it is a text amendment, that it is compliance, again, with our entire ordinance. That's our recommendation, that it will be in compliance and does not contradict any other codes that are in our ordinance as well.
And we'll have Councilwoman Hopkins, and if there's no one else after that, then we'll go for the vote. Councilwoman Hopkins.
I would just like to point out that it seems odd that we're very concerned that a business might violate a Scottdale ordinance or a Tucker ordinance. I would think that it should be our responsibility to ensure that they're in compliance with Clarkston city code and city ordinances. And Tucker is responsible to monitor that things happening within the city limits of Tucker are in compliance with their ordinance. It's similar to the fact that here you have to stop for any bus stopped, but you don't in other cities. We don't go and check that a bus originating in Clarkston, that cars are making sure they stop and don't pass it in Scottdale or Atlanta. I think those cities monitor their own ordinances. We just monitor ours. And so if we say you can do this in Clarkston, that's fine. If they find themselves in hot water because they did something in Scottdale or Tucker that is not in compliance with those cities, then they would deal with those consequences. But I don't think we have to, be our brother's keeper to the point that we would deny a business the opportunity to expand and to keep drunk drivers off the road, because we think that there is a potential that they would violate another city's ordinance while in that city.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hopkins. So if there are no other comments, we'll move for the vote. Yes.
Yeah. I have a question just for Ms. Kilberg. On the since the question of monitoring has come up a couple of times, how easy and is it for you to provide order history list, in case of an audit or when you're licensed? Again, you're sort of our guinea pig for this new class of business your client is. But would you be able to pull up just a list of addresses to which alcohol had been delivered in the past year, just as a part of your license renewal, or that?
I would say that the company will abide by whatever audits exist, but I can't make promise from legal of handing over documentation if it's not part of, without reviewing it or knowing what's is asked to be reviewed. In many states, there are audits. You have to keep data on deliveries and things like that. And we do keep that data for those deliveries, and a lot of states have those restrictions in there. I'm just, without talking to legal, I can't make a promise of what information they would turn over, since I'm not in control of those documents. So I don't want to make promises.
And it's more of a capability question. It's like, is that,
based on state law, and I would have to go back and I apologize. And maybe Robin knows at the top of his head, I would have to go back in. We do keep data based on state law for alcohol regulations. So most states for delivery have data requirements. You have to keep a certain amount of data and deliveries for a certain period of time. And I apologize. I'd have to go back and double check in Georgia. I believe it's there. And so we do keep that data based on those state requirements.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, I think I hear the different arguments, for this, and I think part of what I hear is wrestling with, beyond some of the moratorium on package stores, is concerns with something new. And as I've kind of reflected on this, I think I'm really comfortable with giving this a trial period. I understand Ms. Gilbert, your client as well, is willing to take that risk with the understanding that we could come back in a year and say, this isn't working out. There were some, unintended consequences from a public health standpoint, perhaps from an economic impact standpoint that we didn't foresee. And your client is, from my understanding, comfortable with taking that risk, knowing that you might not be able to continue to sell liquor as, underneath this new provision. Again, as I know we're approving a business class, not necessarily, GovPuff specifically within this ordinance change, but since you brought this, your client is petitioned us to make this change. And it's my understanding is you're comfortable with that, your client will be comfortable with this change moving forward.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah. So I think again, with the automatic renewal, I mean, it makes sense to me to give it a try. There's a lot of questions that may come up as we sort of implement or see what businesses engage with this or choose to take advantage of this new opening. I still have some reservations in terms of public health impact and economic impact and the monitoring, but if we do have a sunset clause on this, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. Saying, hey, we're willing to try new things as a city. We're willing to to experiment a little bit, but with some appropriate safeguards in place, so that we can walk things back if you realize that the risk outweighed the benefit in the future. So that would be my input on this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I have one more question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilwoman.
What are you guys wanting to see in 18 months? We don't have anything to audit. We don't know what we can see right now. So why give 18 months if you want it? If we're gonna approve it, what is the 18 months about? Jamie.
Carol?
So for me, the 18 months, I think, would be to see, how, if there's negative effects, if, for example, Chief Hudson reports to us a year from now that there have been a lot of underage purchases that they've discovered, or if,
How
there are
would they
other
know?
problems. Well, for example, that just like they do a sting operation, for the liquor license, I don't see any reason why they couldn't do a sting operation for this delivery service.
Okay.
There's no reason why they couldn't do a ssimilar operation to check on that. And if there's some problem like that, or maybe some other problem we don't foresee, like Councilman Perkins said, where, if it has a huge economic impact in the local businesses, it's negative, I think we would notice that within 18 months. So I think that, and there may be even some other issue that we're not thinking of today that comes up in the next 18 months that, there would be a chance to reverse it if that turns out to be the case. But I just think it's kind of an appropriate precaution to check on it this way, since it is kind of a new business model that we haven't experimented with before.
Vice Mayor Yasu?
I think I do understand the sting operation on underage drinking, but there cannot be a sting operation on delivery, though. Just like Councilmember Hopkins said it, there is no way our chief can have a sting operation outside the city limits. And I doubt that DeKalb County is going to do it since they don't have an ordinance for it. So I really don't, I'm really not sure about this, how it's going to work out. But yeah, that's all I want to say. I think it's kind of disingenuous to say 18 months. This is just a trial period. It's either you open it up, because we are not doing this for one business. In 18 months, we might get 10 more applicants coming soon. And I really am not exactly sure. It's really it's just some nice words to get this passed, but I don't think it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Any other comments? And Mr. Quinn, I just have one more question. Can we restrict from the number of businesses like this in our area? So for example, that they have to be within X amount of feet of each other or anything like that? Do we have that option?
Yes. And in fact, I suppose that well, no, I mean, we have restrictions for distance, but I would construe those as applying to a retail transaction facility where you get the alcohol. This is, as it's defined, it works as a warehouse. But, you know, the city is in charge of its alcohol regulation. And so just like we put a limit on convenience store style alcohol retail, we could put a limit on delivery only style alcohol retail. It's just kind of different to think about because it's the normal factors that come into play are not present. And also that all the retail stores selling alcohol currently have the ability to deliver.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. So if I hear no other questions at this time or comments, we will go for the vote. So all those in favor of the proposed amendment change and to include no in-person events and to have this effective until December 31st, 2022, say aye.
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 Let me do a roll call. Because that's it.
Mhm.
So Councilwoman Hopkins.
Aye.
Councilman Carroll.
Aye.
Councilman Perkins.
Aye.
Okay. Vice Mayor Yasu.
Nay.
Okay. Councilwoman Johnson. Councilwoman Johnson? You're on mute. I'm sorry.
No.
No. And Councilman Hassan.
Nay.
Hey, who I get my first vote? So the mayor says aye. So it's passed. Motion passed. All right, so we'll move on to the next item, which is F2, amend the city charter to modernize certain provisions to amend Article 4 of the charter regarding budgeting, appropriations, and auditing to repeal conflicting provisions. Mr. Gomez.
This item again is to approve the ordinance for the stated changes to the City of Clarkston charter. The 4 changes specifying city manager duties, changing the oath of office, enhancing fiscal administration specific to the budget, and the fact that our external financial audit will be made public. I believe, Mr. Quinn forwarded a revision to the ordinance per council's direction from the work session that is listed on the screen. The requested change to the oath of office, charter section 3.11. Mr. Quinn added the language again that the council directed at the work session. That language, I think, is the option here. The oath taker may insert a solemn declaration invoking the deity or higher power of his, her choice, or elect not to do so. So that is this is the proposed ordinance that was emailed to all of you and made public on our city website, I believe since yesterday, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Are there any comments from the council at this time? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. Councilwoman Hopkins, are you going to move?
Yes, I move to accept the proposed charter changes as brought forward by the Charter Review Committee to amend Article 4 of the Charter regarding budgeting, appropriations, auditing, and to repeal conflicting provisions and for other purposes.
I second that.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second to amend the city charter with the changes presented by the Charter Review Committee to amend Article 4 of the charter regarding budgeting, appropriations, and auditing to repeal conflicting provisions. You ready for discussion? Is there any discussion? Okay. Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Motion passed. We'll move on to new business, and new business is G1, Section G, G1, public hearing, adoption of an ordinance to annex 1145 Clevemark Drive, Clarkston, Georgia, 30021 into the city of Clarkston. Ms. Cowie, can you give background before we move into the public hearing piece?
Yes, Madam Mayor. This annexation request is from Mr. William Pullum and Taylor Pullum. They're co-owners of the property known as 1145 Clevemark Drive. The property is, give or take, 40% in the city limits of Clarkston and 60% in unincorporated DeKalb County. Following the 100% annexation process, all owners are required to submit to the mayor and city council for consideration to annex a property into the city of Clarkston. That property must be located in an unincorporated area and contiguous to existing limits of the city of Clarkston. Madam Mayor.
Cowie. And so at this time, we will hold our public hearing. And Mr. Gomez, did we have anyone signed up for item G1?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so we had no one signed up for it, no one signed up opposing it, and at this time, we will close the public hearing. Closing the public hearing. Council, did you have any additional questions or anything you would like to say at this time? No? Mr. Pulling, if you're on the call, would you like to say anything else at this time?
I appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pulling. So we have closed said item for public hearing, and we will move into a motion for this agenda item. I'll entertain a motion at this time. Councilwoman Johnson.
I move to adopt the ordinance to annex 1145 Clevemark Drive, Clarkston, Georgia, 30021 into the city of Clarkston.
Second.
Second.
Okay. It's been properly moved and second that we adopt an ordinance to annex 1145 Clevemark Drive, Clarkston, Georgia, 30021 into the city of Clarkston. Is there any discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passed. Thank you. And then we will move on to the public hearing for G2, which is the adoption of an ordinance to assign the zoning of NR1 low density residential to the property located at 1145 Clevemark Drive, Clarkston, Georgia, 30021. And Ms. Cowie, can you give an overview for that one?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor. With the approval of the 100% annexation request, the parcel must be assigned a conversion zoning comparative to the zoning district that is comparable to the current zoning, the current and surrounding zoning category, which, according to this parcel, is NR1 low density residential. Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Ms. Cowee. Mr. Gomez, I saw that Mr. Bishop signed up for this. Did
Yes.
we have anyone else to sign up?
No, just Mr. Bishop.
Okay, Mr. Bishop, you are signed to speak at this time. You will have 3 minutes to speak on this matter.
Well, I guess I should have signed up for G1 so we could have had the right discussion. I don't care really how you zone the property. I told you what the issues were surrounding the property. And I'm looking at your report on the back of the agenda, and it states that the property would have to conform to certain BMPs regarding stormwater runoff and things like that. I want to see that that's held to. I would like to know exactly what those BMPs are, since there never were any established. But I do have that environmental report that the county paid for back in 2008 that talks extensively about the stormwater runoff issues, the erosion. And I sent you pictures of the flooding yesterday, which dovetails into two other issues, both included in the night of my arrest. So we'll talk about it in court. But if you don't require that stream buffer to be protected for environmental reasons, you're doing an extreme disservice to the city. Now, this report that you've got on the back of the agenda states that there are no environmental issues. Well, I beg to differ with you, and I've told you several. It's an estuary. We have many birds that come over, different, not just the heron that lives here, but we have geese that fly over and migrate and have children in our lake. We have all kinds of storks that fly through. We'll see bands on them, and we'll call the national, whatever, the autumn people. So I would like to know what the city is going to do to protect the other citizens from the adverse effects of building next to that stream. I really would like to know that, because it's a special piece of property. It straddles a stream. Every other piece of property abuts the lake or up to the stream on either side. Nobody has control of the entire stream on both sides of their property. Doing anything to that property is going to be extremely harmful in that vicinity. Now, there's plenty of room on that property to build a house comfortably. And as long as they leave that stream buffer and those trees there, that's fine. And like I said earlier, I don't mind people doing things with their property. But this is a special piece of property that's going to be exercising some special privileges. And I think it needs to be regulated in a special manner. So I welcome new neighbors, but it's about time you people do your job and defend this city's environment instead of degrading this city's environment like you've been doing since 2014.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Mr. Gomez, we don't have any other comments, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And council, did you have any comments at this time? Nope. Yes.
I would like to point out that there has been a change in stream buffers in the last year for the city of Clarkston. I believe it was Councilwoman Johnson, perhaps, that pointed out that DeKalb County has a 75-foot stream buffer and Clarkston only had 50, so we expanded ours to 75 feet. But also, one of the great things I think about this particular situation, obviously the land is going to be owned by someone. They're going to want to do something with it. I am happy that it is a family who intends to live on it, whose intention is to have a little house in the woods, and to keep it a house in the woods and preserve the trees and the stream buffer.
Ms. Cowie, in terms of any type of environmental related issues with the development of this property, the city will make sure that we manage that, correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor, there are processes and procedures for any new development in the city of Clarkston, and we will follow that. And Councilwoman Hopkins did reiterate our expanded stream buffer, so we will adhere to that as well during our land disturbance review.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Johnson.
Oh, I didn't have a thing.
Okay, no problem. Okay, I just want to make sure from a process perspective, we did close the public hearing on G2. We are having council comments. And if there are any other comments, are there any other comments? Hearing none. Or Councilman Perkins, did you have a comment?
It's a very short one. I did not welcome Mr. Poling to Clarkston, I believe, in our work session. So I just wanted to, as we are setting things up for their new home, just extend a warm welcome to you. So we've certainly enjoyed raising our family here. So welcome.
Thank you, Councilman Perkins. And again, Mr. Poling, we are very happy to have you in our community. Any other questions? If none, I will entertain a motion at this time. Councilwoman Johnson.
Okay. Can you take that back down for me, Mr. Gomez? Oh, okay. I move to the adoption of an ordinance to assign the zoning of NR1 low density residential to the property located at 1145 Clevemark Drive, Clarkston, Georgia, 30021.
A second.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded for the adoption of an ordinance to assign the zoning of NR1 low density residential to the property located at 1145 Clevemark Drive, Clarkston, Georgia, 30021. Is there any other discussion? Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to welcome our new neighbor, and I think the environmental concerns are something that will be addressed. And if we were really looking at some kind of apartment complex development or some multifamily development, I think that would have been even more concerning. But at this point, I think that additional one house, I don't know if it's going to make much of a difference. And besides, the property owner could have still built something there under DeKalb County. So I think it's not going to make much of a difference in terms of the environmental impact. So, but I certainly, I believe that our staff will make sure that the environmental concerns are met.
Vice Mayor Yasu, and as the environmental chair, I know you're going to also monitor it as well. Thank you very much. If hearing nothing else, we will move forward with are you ready for the question? All in favor of the adoption of an ordinance to assign the zoning of NR1 low density residential to the property located at 1145 Clevemark Drive, Clarkston, Georgia, 30021, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes, and welcome, Mr. Poling. Thank you, and we'll move on to G3, which is to adopt a citywide litter control ordinance. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we presented last week at the work session, we are proposing a comprehensive citywide litter control ordinance that would be in one section. Currently, the guidance, the regulations are for litter control to include how the collections are made, what the responsibilities are for residents, for businesses, are scattered in various code sections throughout our city code of ordinances. So this item is requesting the ordinance to be adopted to consolidate into a new section 23 of our city code of ordinances. And again, the main premise behind this is to, again, provide for obviously the prohibition of any type of littering on anywhere, everywhere throughout the city of Clarkston on public and private property, and certainly to preserve the high quality of life that we experience here in Clarkston, that our residents, businesses, and visitors, and ensure the protection mainly of our waterways, as well as just to have a clean city all around. The section is listed here, really broken out into the sections on the screen, from just the general definitions to obviously that littering is prohibited and what we do, how people should be transporting waste, trash, etc., to include both residents as well as the commercial haulers, to include even our own firms that we contract with to remove trash, the residential and small business trash, also regulations governing animal waste, and then the enforcement and the violations. Mr. Quinn did similarly provide an ordinance here that incorporates the sections, and well, this is the actual ordinance of changing the various sections and consolidating into section 23 in the city code of ordinances. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Council, did you have any questions, or you would like to proceed with the motion and then have discussion?
So we're ready with the motion.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I have
Vice
a
Mayor
motion, Madam
Yasu.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Can you scroll it down?
Sorry.
I move that we adopt an ordinance by the city of Clarkston to adopt new chapter 23rd of the city code to regulate litter control, to provide penalties for violations of litter control regulations, to repeal and recognize certain existing provisions of the city code to be consistent with the litter control ordinance and for other purposes.
There's a second.
Thank you.
It's been properly moved and second that we adopt an ordinance by the city of Clarkston to adopt new chapter 23 of the city code to regulate litter control, to provide penalties for violations of litter control regulation, to repeal and recognize certain existing provisions of the city code to be consistent with the litter control ordinance and for other purposes. Is there any discussion? Yes, Councilwoman Hopkins.
I have a question on this section, Article 4, Part 2. It says it shall be unlawful for any person or contractor or business not licensed by the city to collect and haul any refuse other than that arising from a person's own accumulation within the areas of the city. Now, I just moved and I hired a company, basically junk removal, to dispose of a piano and 3 sofas. Now, this company used to have a base in Clarkston, but doesn't currently. And so I don't know, I think they were out of Doraville. Now, would that now be banned or illegal according to this ordinance, the way I'm reading it? It would.
No, I think it's just simply to say that they do have a license to do that. And what we do is businesses just show us that they do have a license to do that. It's to prevent just people from going out and charging somebody and then dumping it somewhere. By having a license, you have to follow the existing codes that you are going to properly dispose of the trash, junk, debris, etc.
So would we want to change the language on that to be licensed within the state of Georgia rather than licensed by the city?
They do, I mean, they do have a license by showing us that they have a license from where they are located.
Does anybody else read that the same way I do, is where it says licensed by the city?
I had the same question actually on that. I think, are you saying, Robin, that it would be licensed within a particular municipality, or because as it reads right now, if this were enforced by someone, I think I agree with Councilwoman Hopkins. It sounds like they would need to have a license within the city of Clarkston, correct?
I would like to ask.
Yes, Vice Mayor Gaston.
The attorney, yeah. I would like to ask our city attorney. So does that mean that I'm really confused as well now when I think of it. Does this mean that only the designated recycling company or the designated waste pickup company is the only one that can pick up any refuse? So, I mean, if somebody wanted to volunteer and go around and pick up trash, is that going to be a violation?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, keep in mind that the people who are going to be enforcing this are our city police and code enforcement, and so they're going to carry it out in a way that's reasonable, I'm sure. But I think that Section 2 under Article 4, stating that basically you can't haul stuff unless you've got a license or it's your own stuff. Stuff being junk and refuse. Is maintained by the city.
So if I speak, Madam Chair?
Shall be unlawful for any person or contractor or business not licensed by the city. So that would mean that the business has a license, and business licensing is like reciprocal. So there are many businesses that operate within Clarkston that do not have a Clarkston business license. They may have a DeKalb or Atlanta or Stone Mountain business license. And we recognize their licenses, they recognize our licenses, and they're able to operate. So it's not a city license, but they are effectively licensed to operate within Clarkston.
And also this section, now that I recall, referencing the actual barrel, the waste management barrel, and the current service that we have. So either we provide the service or currently we contract with a third party, another vendor, Waste Management, to do that. This is all stipulating that that company that is normally collecting the refuse that, again, we would normally collect, that they have to have a license. So it really, the applicability is to that vendor as well as what Mr. Quinn stated.
Mayor Yasu.
So I still, I'm not sure what does it address. So and another thing related to that is if somebody wanted to help, like a friend of somebody wanted to help somebody that, and the owner of the refuse actually authorized the person and they want to haul it or they want to donate it to somebody. So I think this could be problematic in some cases.
That is not the intent of this by any stretch. That's not the intent, as I stated. The intent of this is first and foremost for the service that we contract with to remove weekly trash refuse.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Johnson?
So that would not include bulk household debris? Because currently we don't have anyone picking up bulk. We have
The
to call
city
them.
does, we do, the city of Clarkston does.
You started back?
We've been collecting bulk for more than a year.
Oh, I think I'm referring to the truck being down. The truck was down for several.
Yeah, it was
almost
down for a
month.
few weeks, for
Okay.
about 3 weeks. But we still
Okay.
collected bulk, even when the truck was not operating.
Councilman Perkins?
Yeah, so this is, I definitely think section 2 could maybe use some tightening up. But I also wanted to, since we're in Article 4, I'm looking at the section 1 of that, and I'm a little concerned. So a number of our apartment complexes, I'm not going to name names, have dumpsters that are on the complete opposite side of the property. And so with, this section here, say if I'm, almost a mile away or half a mile away from where I can actually deposit my trash bag, I know it's sort of a problem, but in two directions. So people carrying their trash bag on the car, they're trying to dump it, it falls off and it scatters all over, the road. How do we see us enforcing this in terms of, creating a reasonable ask, of tenants when maybe their landlord has put a dumpster on the other side of the property. I don't know if that makes sense. So this is just a concern I have. I mean, from having lived in an apartment complex and then knowing other renters as well, especially if you have, physical disabilities or you're, anything like that, it can be a long route to try and drag a trash bag to the other side of the property, which I think a lot of people put their trash on their vehicle. So how are we seeing this being enforced? Is that going to fall underneath this in terms of enforcement? Somebody get a fine if they're caught doing that and patrol happens to be rolling through, or
our intent is not to fine someone for if they do what you just stated. It would be to inform, advocate, educate them, and make sure that that the trash is not escaping however they're carrying it. This is again more designed for a truck driving down Montreal Road and the trash in the back of the truck, and that includes our truck, the city truck, or our pickup trucks when we're picking up when the truck isn't working, that the trash is secure so it's not falling away out of the vehicle. So in terms of somebody driving or taking their trash, it is still their responsibility to make sure that the trash doesn't fall out. If we see somebody driving and forgetting that they put the trash bag on top of their car, we may stop them and just tell them, please don't do that again. Be mindful and try not to litter. I mean, that's what we would do. The intent is not to fine somebody for doing that.
Sure. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think, my concern is just that transport thing. So, yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, Councilman Perkins. Councilwoman Hopkins.
The part on, I guess, section 6 or article 6, section 23(7), number 1, it says the director of public works, the code enforcement officer, and duly warned police officers of the city are hereby empowered to issue citations or to arrest persons violating the provisions of this section and may serve and execute all warrants and other processes issued by the court in enforcing the provisions of this section. I don't think we want to give public works the authority to arrest or code enforcement necessarily. And because there's some other concerns here, like where it says pet waste, it doesn't specifically say pet feces. So if a dog urinates on the side of the road and the person doesn't mop that up, can they be, I think this is not entirely ready to be passed. Let me put it that way. I would suggest we take another month and look at this and fine tune it, because the thing is, we have to consider if the city manager, code enforcement, whoever wins the lottery and disappears, and by accident, we hire the biggest jerk on the planet, they may follow this to the letter of the law of what we actually passed. And we have to be prepared to live by what we passed, not the intent of the original authors, because that usually doesn't hold up in court.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hopkins. However, we do have, if I'm not mistaken, a motion on the floor. So anything related to the motion, we would have to either vote it up or down, or vote it down if we wanted to postpone. So right now we do have a motion on the floor. Yes, Vice
Madam
Mayor.
Mayor, if it is the intention of the council, I don't mind pulling my motion if there is a consensus.
I would agree to that.
That the consensus of the council, that they want to entertain a motion to postpone this.
Yes.
I would agree to that.
Okay, so you Miss Vice Mayor Yasu, you rescinded your original motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the original motion has been rescinded, and so at this time, I will entertain a motion on this item.
I would make a motion that we postpone this item until the next meeting in June, and we can, in the meantime, tighten up the language until we have something that we would be able to live by 100%, even if all of the riders are no longer in the city.
So can you restate your motion to deal with
Okay.
exaction
I'm
of
sorry.
that action? Okay.
And that's a work session, so we can discuss it.
Okay. I would make a motion to postpone this agenda item until the next meeting, until the next work session.
Second, and council meeting.
In council meeting.
Okay. Is there a second?
I
second it.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we postpone this agenda item until the next work session and council meeting. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say
Aye.
nay. Motion passes. Item will be postponed until the next council meeting. The next item is item G4, which is to adopt Bike Month resolution. That is something that are brought up. I'm very happy to see that we were able to work with our sister cities, Tucker, Stone Mountain, Avondale Estates, and Decatur. And if you've noticed that each day we are posting information about bicycle education, and we had the kickoff on May 1st, and we will continue to do activities throughout the month. Our police department is coming up with something in terms of a bike activity on May 15th, and you will see advertisement for that activity. Thanks to our police department for doing that. And again, it is to emphasize bicycle safety, bicycle education, and making sure that we enjoy our wonderful Stone Mountain path, and to start the process of collaboration among our cities, and to encourage residents to make sure that that you can also enjoy economic development and go and visit some of our wonderful shops and see some of our wonderful murals and activities along the way. So again, thank you, council, for your participation, and we look forward to additional activities like this. Are there any questions or comments at this time? I'll entertain a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Hopkins.
I'm just wondering, do you have the proclamation from the work session? It didn't seem to make it into the packet.
There it is, right there.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see it. Okay, never mind.
That's fine, no problem. Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion at this time. Councilwoman Johnson.
I can't see it, but I move to approve May as Bike Month in Clarkston. Did I do okay? Okay, great.
That's fine. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved. It's been properly moved and second to recognize Bike Month in May. All those, any discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passed. Thank you, everyone. And so we'll move on to item G5, which is commitment to phase out the use of single-use plastic within Clarkston owned, operated, and leased buildings and facilities resolution. And so again, we are working with the environmental committee. This is something that had been discussed, and given where we are in terms of COVID, not necessarily starting with our businesses, but at least starting with our commitment from our city that we will be mindful of the use of single-use products and to make sure that we phase that out within the year. And Vice Mayor Yasu, did you have any additional comments as the environmental chair?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I definitely agree with this, the spirit of this resolution that we eliminate single-use plastic, and I think it doesn't require much of challenge, and all we have to push is educating, and this is a great start. And I think the whole recycling within our city is also another addition. So we definitely want to encourage people not to litter, but recycle. So I think plastic should be only put in recycling. No, I mean, it doesn't belong in our streams. It doesn't belong in our trash. So, and the committee will continue working and making sure that in a business-friendly way, we're going to phase it out. And I think we're going to work on it in the coming months. And so thank you, Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor Yasu, are there any other comments? Hearing none, are you ready to make a motion?
Have a motion?
Vice Mayor Yasu.
I move that we adopt this resolution to eliminate single-use plastics.
Second.
Second.
Properly moved and second that we adopt the motion to reduce single-use plastics within Clarkston owned, operated, and leased buildings and facilities resolution. You ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passed. Thank you all. We will move on to G6, which is to approve the appointments to the police task force. And Mr. Gomez provided the names. I don't think they're on the call today, but you do have the resumes of the individuals for submission and consideration. We do have Joseph Arnold, who is the Executive Director for Positive Growth. He deals with teens. We have Teresa Hardy, who is the President for the NAACP of DeKalb County. We have Judge David Will, who is an attorney. We have Louis Sammy, who is the Executive Director for the Clarkston Community Center, which is our multicultural organization. We have Jewel Gooding, who is the Executive Director for Silence of the Shame, who deals with mental health. We have Pastor Carl Moore, who is the Senior Pastor at Clarkston First Baptist Church, who has our faith-based organization. We have April Ross, who is the Executive Director for the Georgia Commission on Family Violence, who will deal with domestic violence issue. And we have Kim Alt, who is a resident of Clarkston, the Clarkston unincorporated area. And so with that, we have a very well-rounded group of individuals in terms of looking at training and policy. And so at this time, do you have any questions? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Madam Mayor, I just want to ask, is Judge David Will, isn't that our city judge?
Yes, is that Mr. Gomez? Is that the city judge?
Yes, Judge David Will is our city judge.
And as much as I appreciate his interest, I really have a bit of concern that he's already the judge of, and isn't it? I just want to know clear answer from our city attorney that is that something that could be an issue? Mr. Quinn?
Yes. Hi, I'm here. So the question is whether it could be an issue that Judge Will was separately playing an advisory role to the law enforcement.
Yes.
Right. I mean, while he's also the judge.
I mean, could an issue come up? I suppose so. I think that he certainly should not, and I'm sure would not, participate in evaluating or discussing a particular event or defendant. But my understanding is that that's not really what the group would do, that it would make like policy recommendations. And I think that Judge Will probably has a lot of insight that he could add. But I can see where some kind of, somebody might not be totally comfortable with that.
And counsel,
Yeah.
if you have concerns, you can select the rest of the people and not have Judge Will as a representative, and we can get someone else to serve as a representative. Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
Madam Mayor, I'm just trying to make sure it's okay, but I'm not really opposed to being appointed, but I'm trying to make sure that
I
we
appreciate
are
that.
okay doing that.
And that's fine. And just to make sure we can make sure that there's no conflicts or the appearance of a conflict, then we can make sure that we approve in terms of the motion, all parties except for individual number 3.
Madam Mayor, this is Chief Hudson. Can I add something?
Sure.
I think what Stephen was saying is correct. We're looking at policies, and this is once they conclude with what they're going to come up with, isn't it going before the Public Safety Committee anyway?
Yes, it is. And for the purposes of this exercise, in terms of the committee, they cannot talk about specific cases or incidents. It is strictly policy and training.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. And at this time, we'll entertain a motion. Councilwoman Johnson.
I move to appoint Do you want me to list the names?
You can list the names if you want to.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Yes, you can list the names.
I move to appoint Joseph Arnold from Positive Growth, Teresa Hardy from the NAACP, Judge David Will, the attorney, Sammy from the Clarkston, I don't know her first name, Clarkston Community Center, Joel Gooding, Silence of Shame, author, mental health, I don't know. Pastor Carl Moore, Clarkston First Baptist, April Ross, from the Domestic Violence Organization, and Kim Alt, the individual, to the Clarkston Police Community Task Force. Keep going, mainly from categories, criteria, organizations identified in the resolution to create the CPCTF. That's it. I can't hear you, Madam Mayor.
No, that's fine. That's it.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, it's been properly moved in second that we approve Joseph Arnold for Positive Growth, Teresa Hardy, NAACP, Judge David Will, attorney, Louis Sammy, Clarkston Community Center, Jewel Gooding, Silence of Shame, Pastor Carl Moore, Clarkston First Baptist Church, April Ross, Georgia Commission on Family Violence, and Kim Alt, individual. Is there any discussion? Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
Yes, I just want to say I thought we were gonna hold off on the appointment of Judge Will.
Well, that was the motion. Yes, but Councilwoman Johnson.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Vice Mayor Yasu, if you look at the titles of the 8 people that are on here, with the exception of the individual, they all are either working with an organization or have a skill that we may need to interact in any level or capacity with the community task force. So if you want to, we can let Stephen or somebody look into it, but they're just making recommendations and that type of thing. No decisions to that point, just recommendations. So if you want to, I can change the motion. I didn't know.
I kind of understand. I mean, Judge David Will definitely would have wealth of information, but I think even we could add police chief as well, or we could add the city manager as well. So I'm not really sure. So that's why I'm really concerned that he's the only one actually is employed by the city of Clarkston. None of the other ones are employed by the city of Clarkston. So I think he would definitely be, I don't think he minds being not appointed today, and we could appoint him on the
Vice
next
Mayor,
month.
what is your specific concern with Judge Will? I'm not understanding what your concern is. I don't think neither is the chief nor Stephen.
Well, I actually asked the question earlier, saying that he works for the city, and
Well, he's a contract for us. He's not an employee.
Well, if that's how everybody feels, I will be okay. But
Again, I'm curious what your concern is, though.
I already stated my my concern, Mr. Gomez.
I think you.
And I said,
Go ahead.
I've already asked our city attorney if it is okay that a city employee or a contract employee, he's the only one who have a contract employee, then how about I put it that way? All the other ones don't work or contract with the city of Clarkston. So I just have a concern. That's all. I mean,
okay, that's
that
fine.
it would. I mean,
We brought it
but
up,
I'm
and
not
that's fine.
against.
That's fine. It's not an issue. It's not an issue. And so from a motion perspective, we can go ahead and approve the other 7 people. And if we need to rescind the motion, it's not a problem.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I think just sort of a counter argument to that, and I'm okay with either direction on this. I think it would be helpful since it's not necessarily a voting body, as I understand. It's not. I just went through and reread it just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. But it's not examining, reviewing, or making, recommendations on specific incidents we've discussed, but, more general, evaluating sort of the relationship, between our police and community. I think it could be helpful to have his perspective or someone from that part of our city, just in terms of familiarity with processes and things like that, to bring that into discussions. I think we do have a significant, if it was maybe 3 individuals, maybe that would be more of a concern to me, but I think we have a fairly well-rounded team here that could offset any conflict of interest, even from a voting stand, if they were a voting body on a particular recommendation. I don't know. So just another perspective on that.
That's fine. I will entertain whatever pleasure in terms of the council has as how they want to proceed with it.
I have one more question. This may be a question for Chief Hudson, to see if Chief Hudson had any concerns about a potential conflict of interest with having Judge Will on this board.
No, I don't. Councilman Carroll, I do believe that he would be able to help with this group if they have any kind of questions. And it's obvious that they're not going to be doing any type of voting. They're only looking at our policies and how we can do better out in the community with training. And all of this is going to be forwarded to the Public Safety Committee anyway. So I think I would leave them on there.
This is Robin. I agree and support the chief's comment. I think that there really aren't any concerns with it, but
Mr. Gomez, and I just noticed this, where's the representative from Noble?
he got dropped out. He's on here, should be on here, and we apologize. I noticed that that's not on here. Mr. Rafiq Ahmad should be on here as well, from the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, would be the 9th name on the list. He was it was added when we added Kim Alt. We inadvertently took out or overtyped Rafiq Ahmad. So the one from Noble, again, the National Organization for Black Law Enforcement Executives.
So then we'd have to restate the motion, because we have 9 people, not 8.
Or you can just wait to do it next month.
No, we can go ahead.
Madam Mayor.
But again, just to reiterate, we don't have any issues with having Judge Will on there. But again, that is the council's decision.
Okay. Vice Mayor Yasu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, since we should have had 9 names, let's just postpone this until next month, and we appoint everybody next month. Because if his name was not listed on the agenda, we don't want to make sure that we actually have to say this. If it's okay with the council, we can appoint them next month. It's not like there is something imminent that they have to do right away.
He was on there. He'd already sent it. It was a typo where they didn't have his name on it. He'd already sent it.
It was on the work session.
It was on the work session agenda. So, Councilwoman Johnson.
Okay. I move to appoint the following people to the Clarkston Police Community Task Force: Joseph Arnold, Positive Growth; Teresa Hardy, NAACP; Judge David Will, Attorney; Lou Sammy, Clarkston Community Center; Joel Gooding, Silence of Shame; Pastor Carl Moore, Clarkston First Baptist Church; April Ross, Commission of Family Violence; Kim Alt, Individual; And if you can go down for me, Mr. Gomez, and let me read his resume, his name. And Joseph Tyrone Arnold.
No, he's.
Oh, wait a minute. What's his name? Oh.
No, Rafiq, R-A-F-I-Q, Ahmad, A-H-M-A-D.
Okay. Rafiq Ahmad.
Thank you.
These 9 people to the CPCTF.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
You're on mute.
I will second it.
Okay, thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we approve Joseph Arnold, Positive Growth, Teresa Hardy, NAACP, Judge David Will, attorney, Louis Sammy, Clarkston Community Center, Jewel Gooding, Silence of Shame, Pastor Carl Moore, Clarkston First Baptist Church, April Ross, Georgia Commission on Family Violence, Kim All Individual, and Rafiq Ahmad Noble. Is there any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Mayor?
Yes. Yes.
I've been raising my hand for.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't see.
I'm
So,
sorry.
and thank you for being patient. Yes, Councilman
I
Hopkins.
just wanted to jump in here to say that I do share Councilman Iyasu's concern about Judge Will being on this committee. I do see that if it's going to be a community police task force, the value of having members of the police force on it as well. But judged from the judicial standpoint, Judge Will is the highest person in the city of Clarkston. There are people on this call that have issues that will be coming in front of Judge Will. There may be people on that committee, and it's not my concern that he would talk about them, but that it may cause other members of the committee to not act with as much clarity as we would want them to because of fear of possible repercussions, or just they might not be as open or honest as they would want to because they think they may come up in front of Judge Will. I just think he's a very heavy character to have on a committee where we're looking for his maximum engagement by the other members.
I hear your point. And again, it is at the pleasure of the council if you do or do not want him. But all the individuals on here are subject matter experts in the areas. If you notice in terms of, and we have a community person, but they all have and bring subject matter expertise and not necessarily from addressing any issues in terms of conflicts with their position and the information that they will provide. So it is more for them to look at policies, to provide recommendations, and not to look at individual cases and not to deal or address with anything such as individual cases.
And can we be 100% certain that none of those people would just automatically agree with Judge Will because they do have a case coming before him at some point? I mean, I do think it creates an obvious conflict. If we're looking at justice in Clarkston and then we have the highest ranking person in justice in Clarkston to evaluate it.
And that's fine. If you, again, this is at the pleasure of the council.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys do not want to have that person as on here, we can move said item and said individual off and we can approve the others. But whatever the majority wants to do, that is fine. These were recommendations. And so we can go from there. There's a motion.
I don't have a problem with that. I made the motion, Madam Mayor, but it's up to them because and they may just need to know what the nature of the task force is, who and what they're doing. I think that may be the misinterpretation here. What the functionality of the task force really is.
The task force will just address policies and procedures for our police department and for them to provide recommendations. Those recommendations will then go to the Public Safety and Legal Committee for review and approval before being presented to the council. So there is a layer before it even comes to the council for consideration. Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
And I think I really, again, I want to say I really am thankful to Judge Wills that he's interested in helping. But I think even if he is not really appointed, I have a good feeling he can still be valuable. He could still help. And so does the chief, so does the city manager, even if they're not named as members of this committee. I have a feeling that they could still help. So I am pretty sure that being on the committee is not the only way that he could help. But and I raised it. I just thought of being a concern. But I just don't want us to look like it's only the council. And since you are also part of the council, I really want you to also weigh in and really, so don't really deflect it on us.
That's okay, Vice Mayor Yasu. So for, again, if the majority feels that they would prefer not to have someone in the position, that's fine. Because at the end of the day, the real objective is to make sure that we provide recommendations and policies and for training and policies. So again, that is why we have majority rules, and that's why we take input from the council and from me too, as well. So I'm okay with if you want to rescind this motion, and if you want to just exclude him and we move on, or if you just want to move on and vote with this, it's okay. The bottom line is I just want this committee to start functioning and working. I don't want to have any appearances of conflict. And if that is what the pleasure of the council is and myself, we'll move forward. So,
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Can I ask a question? I'm still a little unclear in terms of, I think it'd be helpful for me to have a couple of examples of the kinds of conflict that you guys are foreseeing. Because, as it's previously stated, it seems to me that it would be wise of us to have subject matter experts from different perspectives in the community, which you would provide that judicial branch perspective in terms of, well, what are the legal implications of this? What are the limitations on recommendations or, possible policy changes? And again, we do have other members balancing that. So I'm just, maybe there's something I'm missing there that's a concern. Because again, they're not talking about specific cases. Maybe there's a way you see a case coming up in the discussion where someone wouldn't bring their full perspective into a conversation. But maybe the council members can help me understand.
I guess Councilwoman Hopkins and Vice Mayor Yasu is, again, because it's nothing in terms of, they're not going to say this case on docket, blah, 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 blah. They're not doing that. They're saying, let's look at the policies that are in place. Let's look at the training. Let's look at recommendations to improve the quality of community work. Community police.
To go with the obvious, we've had, there's no one on this council that I would really feel uncomfortable going head to head with, and pretty much all of you I have at some point on some issue. But I am being very careful in how I'm saying things because we're talking about our one and only city judge. So I don't want him to think that we don't appreciate what he does or that he is not fair and judicial, but we have also had concerns. Just, I think 2 weeks before I was sworn in, the Southern Center for Human Rights wrote that scathing letter and published it in the AJC, where Clarkston has human and civil rights violations going back years and years based on our judicial system. Now, granted, Judge Will had only been in office for a couple of years at that point, and they were citing cases that preceded him, I believe. But I think people are wise to be hesitant if we're talking about trying to take an innovative, creative, different approach, bringing in someone who pretty much outranks everyone else in the city if it comes to something judicial would cause people to not participate.
The people, and to your point, Councilwoman Hopkins, the people who've been selected on there, I think they are from their backgrounds and their positions, especially if you notice a lot of them are executive directors, which means that they have to deal and manage and handle people. I don't think that they will have in terms of an issue with the judge and being able to voice their concerns and their opinions to make sure at the end of the day, we come up with a quality product to present to the Public Safety and Legal Committee, then to come to us. But again, I don't, in terms of unreadiness, I am okay with us not doing it. At the end of the day, I just want to make sure that we have a group of individuals who are willing to give their time to come up with a product to make sure that we do an excellent job of policing in our community, period. So if that means that in terms of who we have on here, if you want to rescind it and make sure we have 8, and then that we may come back to find someone else who may be an attorney or a judge, I am okay. But at the bottom line is that we want to make sure that we can start with the committee. We have other than that individual, in terms of your concern, we have an excellent group of individuals who are willing to give to Clarkston. So let us proceed with however you would like, and I'm okay.
I personally would be comfortable having an attorney or judge that was not our judge.
And that's fine.
My concern. He's,
and that has been said. And Mr. Gomez, I know you were about to say something.
Just going to say, Mary, there is a motion and a second, and perhaps a vote would clarify.
Yes, so let's vote. And then if you want to vote and vote it down, and then we can move to vote to have to do whatever at that point. But are you ready for the question?
We're ready.
Okay, all in favor of the appointment of the 9 names. I'm just going to go through the 9 names presented. Say aye.
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 Councilman Carroll.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Yasu.
I will abstain.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman Hassan. Councilman Hassan. Okay. Councilwoman Hopkins.
Nay.
Okay. And Councilman Perkins.
Aye.
Okay, so looks like the motion passed. So we'll proceed. Okay, thank you, everyone. Whew. We'll move on to G7, which is adopt resolution to increase the cap number of refugees to a previous announced 62,500 up from 15,000. Councilman Carroll.
Yeah, so I'll just go through the history in this briefly because some things have changed since the work session. But essentially, historically, the U.S. has admitted refugees ranging between 50,000 to 100,000 each fiscal year throughout presidents from both parties since the refugee program was initiated by President Carter back in, I believe, 1979. President Trump brought the refugee numbers down to historic lows. And in fact, scheduled for fiscal year 2021, there will only be 15,000
refugees admitted that year. President Biden promised in February 2021 that he would raise the fiscal year 2021 refugee numbers back to 62,500, which is more in accordance with the historic numbers that have been admitted. And on March 16th, 2021, the Biden administration then changed their policy and said they would actually limit it to just 15,000. And then I introduced this resolution at that time. Shortly thereafter, the Biden administration changed again and said now they were going to reconsider the number and announce at a later date. And now, possibly being threatened by the City of Clarkston resolution, the Biden administration changed their minds one more time yesterday and went back to the 62,500 number that they'd originally announced in February 2021. So I would like to very slightly amend this resolution now that the Biden administration has announced that they're going to go back to 60,500 to just encourage the Biden administration to keep to its commitment to actually admit 62,500 refugees throughout fiscal year 2021, because the cap is just the absolute limit on the number they can admit. It's not a promise to admit that number. But I understand that there are over 40,000 refugees that have passed all the security clearances that are eligible for immediate admission. So I believe that 62,500 is feasible, as the Biden administration originally announced. So I'd like the council to pass the resolution slightly amended to encourage the Biden administration to actually admit 62,500 refugees in fiscal year 2021. And I think we all know, as a residents of the city of Clarkston, what a benefit Clarkston's had from the refugee admissions over the years. And I expect that benefit to continue in the future.
Well, thank you, Councilman Carroll, for making sure Biden heard this wonderful resolution that you had. And it just goes to show you the power of Clarkston. So thank you very much for what you continue to do for our residents. So is there a second for this? Vice Mayor Yasu.
I didn't know there was a motion. I just had a question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So I think Councilmember Carroll just presented it. I think we haven't had a motion yet, right?
Right, he just presented
Okay.
to change it. Yeah.
Yes. So I actually saw the news today that the number is just like it was promised during his campaign to 62,500. So I said this at the work session also that so in light of this development, do we still want to go proceed and just affirm, or I'm not sure, because that's what the Biden administration said, the same thing. So they will move it to 62,500, and so I'm not really sure.
So Vice Mayor Yasu, Councilman Carroll, in his introduction, said that he wanted us to amend this to encourage the Biden administration to keep to the number of the 62,500. So in terms of the actual execution of the motion, we will have an encouragement versus the original resolution to adopt to increase it.
Right. I just want to encourage the Biden administration to actually admit that number of refugees, because the cap is just the limit on the number they'll admit. But they may not, just because you make the cap 62,500 doesn't mean you actually have to admit that number. You could make the cap that number and admit lower, which is what Trump did for all 4 years. So I would encourage the Biden, I would just amend it to encourage the Biden administration to actually admit up to the cap, which is now it's going to be 62,500. So that I would make a motion for that. If I could get a second, I'd appreciate it.
So you are making that motion and at this time, Councilman Carroll?
Yes.
Okay, so please state the motion.
I'd move to approve the resolution, the proclamation by the mayor and the city council regarding refugee mission in Clarkston, with the amendment that under be it further resolved, that the language state as follows: be it further resolved by the city of Clarkston and the Clarkston City Council hereby calls on the Biden administration to keep to its commitment to actually admit 62,500 refugees for resettlement in fiscal year 2021.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that.
All right, it's been properly moved to approve the resolution with the amendment to encourage to keep the cap at 62,500. Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
aye, okay. All opposed say nay. Motion passed. Perfect. All right, the power of these resolutions, I tell you. Vice Mayor Yasu, you had the rent the other month, and now Councilman Carroll. Okay. Item G8, adopt a proclamation designating Nurses Week, May 6th through the 12th. And again, as you know, with COVID, this has been something that is very important. If it has not been for our nurses and those frontline workers, I don't know where we would be. So it is just an attitude of gratitude for those who continue to be on the front line, making sure that we stay safe. And it's just a matter of saying thank you. And so with that, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the nurses resolution.
Second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved that we approve of the nurses resolution or proclamation. Any discussion? Okay. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passed. Okay, and now move to adjourn. I accept the motion.
I have a motion.
Yes,
Motion
Vice
to
Mayor
adjourn,
Yasi.
Madam Mayor.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Motion passed. Meeting is adjourned. 9:46. Thank